The Galactic Council chamber stretched like an endless coliseum of glass and steel, suspended above the dying light of a red giant star. 1,000 species filled the tiers. Their alien voices hushed the murmurs as a human envoy strode forward. Commander Elias Rourke's boots echoed across the obsidian floor, each step deliberate, every sound swallowed by the cavernous silence. At the chamber's heart stood the High Chancellor of the Cthel Dominion. Veilthar's towering frame glistened like blackened obsidian, segmented armor plates shifting as he turned. His 4 narrow eyes locked on Rourke, predatory and unblinking. When he spoke, his voice rolled through the chamber like cold thunder. "Human," Veilthar said, "you are summoned here to answer for your kind's transgressions. Your rapid militarization and reckless expansion violate the accords of this council. You will dismantle your fleets. You will submit your weapons programs for inspection. You will comply or face annihilation." Rourke stopped just shy of the raised dais. He clasped his hands behind his back, posture relaxed but purposeful. He was a man in a storm, and he stood as if the lightning feared him. Annihilation? Rourke's tone was calm, almost amused. That's a big word for a committee that's never faced a war it didn't run from. A wave of alien murmurs rippled across the tiers, hissing, clicking, and guttural snarls from species unknown. The council speaker, a willowy being of light, flickered with unease. "Envoy Rourke, this is not the time for defiance. You stand before 400 worlds united in judgment. Judgment." Rourke turned, scanning the faces, or whatever passive faces, surrounding him. "Let's be clear. We didn't come here to beg for your approval. We came because we thought there was something worth joining, a union of civilizations, a chance to learn. But all I see is a court of predators, worried the new blood might bite back." Veilthar's armored claws flexed. "Your arrogance blinds you. Humanity's position is weak. Your fleets are a fraction of our strength. Your colonies are young and undefended. Submit now, or the stars will be scrubbed clean of your kind." Rourke's eyes sharpened. He took a slow step forward, the air between them heavy as a drawn blade. "Is that all?" he asked softly. The words hung like a detonator in the silence. Even the hum of the chamber's energy field seemed to pause. "Is that all?" Veilthar's voice grated, his plates grinding as if the phrase itself cut him. "You threaten us with war," Rourke said, his voice rising just enough for every creature present to hear. "You think we don't know what that means? Do you think we haven't bled enough on our own soil to understand the price of survival? You think the word annihilation will scare us?" He leaned forward, his face mere feet from the towering aliens. "Let me tell you something about humanity. We were born on a world that tried to kill us every day. We faced plagues, ice ages, and our own wars. And yet we're still here. We don't back down because someone growls at us." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of alien voices, outrage and disbelief shaking the walls. The speaker's light body flared in warning. "Commander Rourke, you will restrain yourself." But Rourke didn't move. His gaze was locked on Veilthar, unblinking. "You say we're weak. Maybe we are compared to your fleets. But weakness isn't what defines us. Adaptability does. Ingenuity does. The kind of stubborn will that doesn't know how to quit." Veilthar bared his fangs, his claws gouging the dais. "You dare speak a will to me, human?" "Yeah," Rourke said with sharp grin. "Because I know what scares you. It's not our ships or our guns. It's the fact you can't predict us. You can't control us. You look at us and see a species too reckless to follow your rules, and that terrifies you." The Cthel Chancellor surged forward, his massive shadow falling over Rourke, but the human didn't flinch. From the far tiers, a voice called out, a representative of the Arvaxian Alliance, their serpentine bodies coiling in agitation. "This insolence proves they are dangerous. Humanity must be brought to heel." Another voice, deep and resonant, countered, "Or perhaps they are right. The Council fears what it cannot dominate." The chamber devolved into chaotic argument. Rourke seized the moment. He raised his voice, commanding the floor. "You want us to dismantle our fleets? No, we will not kneel. We will not hand over our defenses while you sit here deciding which species gets to survive. You want to fight? Fine. But But you better be ready for what happens when you corner something that refuses to die. The speakers form pulsed urgently, trying to restore order. Commander Rourke, this is your final warning. Warning. Rourke laughed, low and dark. Every warning I've ever gotten was just a chance to prove someone wrong. This is no different. Veilthar's claws slammed into the dais, splintering the metallic surface. You have made your choice, human. When your colonies burn, when your fleets are scattered, remember this day. Oh, I'll remember it, Rourke said, his voice like steel wrapped in fire. I'll remember every face in this room. And when the dust clears, I'll ask you one thing. Was it worth underestimating us? The silence that followed was electric, taut as a wire ready to snap. Without another word, Rourke turned his back on the dais and strode toward the exit. The alien murmurs rose again, a storm of confusion, anger, and fear. Some watched him with contempt, others with something closer to respect. As the door slid open, Rourke paused just long enough to deliver his parting words, his voice carrying through the chamber like a challenge etched in stone. Humanity doesn't start wars, he said, but we finish them. Then he was gone, the echo of his footsteps fading into the metallic corridors beyond. Veilthar's claws tightened on the edge of the dais, his cold gaze following the human's retreat. For the first time in decades, a shadow of doubt crept across the High Chancellor's face. The conference room aboard the Aegis, humanity's flagship, was a stark contrast to the gilded grandeur of the Galactic Council chamber. Its walls were lined with matte black panels, every surface practical, every line purposeful. The faint hum of the ship's core pulsed beneath the deck, steady and reassuring. Commander Elias Rourke stood at the head of the table, shoulders squared, his reflection sharp against the glass surface. A handful of senior officers surrounded him, faces drawn tight with anticipation. Admiral Lien Ten leaned forward, her uniform immaculate, her dark eyes assessing Rourke's every move. The Council won't forget what you said, Elias. You may have just painted a target on every Terran ship in the galaxy. Rourke smirked, though there was no humor in his voice. Good. Let them look. The moment we start hiding is the moment we lose. Chief Engineer Vega, a broad-shouldered man with grease smudges on his collar, slammed a hand on the table. We're outnumbered 100-1. If they decide to come for us, we won't win by playing fair. Rourke nodded. Exactly why we're not going to play fair. The Council expects us to roll over. They think we're a minor species with second-hand tech and fragile colonies. What they don't see is how far we're willing to go when pushed. He tapped a command into the table's console. A holographic projection flared to life above them. A map of known Council territories, glowing blue star systems connected by thin energy lines. Humanity's borders, in sharp red, looked like a jagged claw scratching at the edges of a much larger beast. Here's the truth, Rourke said, pointing at the map. We can't win a direct war. Their fleets will crush us in a straight fight. But we don't need to match them ship for ship. We need to make the cost of attacking us too high to stomach. Lien crossed her arms. You're talking asymmetrical warfare. I'm talking survival. Rourke's voice dropped, hard as steel. Guerrilla tactics, ambushes, sabotage. We turn every colony into a fortress, every trade route into a battlefield. If they come, we make them bleed for every inch. Vega grinned, a spark of dangerous pride lighting his features. I've been working on something that might help with that. Prototype railguns with plasma-tipped rounds. We mount them on asteroid fields, cloak them, and let the enemy sail right into hell. Rourke's lips curved into a sharp smile. That's what I like to hear. We don't need the biggest fleet. We need the meanest. A silence settled over the table for a moment, broken only by the soft hum of the hologram. Admiral Yen's voice cut through the quiet, cool and measured. There's another problem. Veilthar isn't bluffing. He'll strike first. We need to know where and when, or none of this planning matters. Rourke's gaze sharpened. I'm already on it. I have agents embedded on Aurelia Prime. They're feeding us council chatter. If Veilthar moves his fleets, we'll know before he does. Vega's brows shot up. You have people in their capital? That's suicidal. Only if they get caught, Rourke replied, his tone flat, as if summoned by his words. The comms officer's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Commander, we've received a priority transmission. Encrypted Terran code. Eyes only." Rourke's jaw tightened. "We're out of here." The hologram flickered, shifting from the star map to a grainy feed of a hooded figure. The agent's face was shadowed, but the urgency in their voice was unmistakable. "Commander Rourke, the Council is mobilizing. Thel fleets are gathering near the Deneb sector. Intel suggests a decapitation strike. Earth and Mars are primary targets. You have weeks at most, maybe days." The feed cut out before anyone could respond. A cold silence gripped the room. Lien was the first to speak. "If they hit Earth first—" "They won't," Rourke interrupted, his voice like a hammer. "Not if we hit back harder and faster than they expect." He turned to Vega. "I want those railguns operational in 5 days. Use whatever resources you need. Pull crews from other ships if you have to." Vega nodded, determination etched into his face. "Consider it done." "Admiral Lien," Rourke continued, "assemble every combat-ready ship in the fleet. No waiting for permission from the Terran Council. They'll debate until the stars burn out. We're taking action now." Lien hesitated. "You're talking about preparing for war before they fire the first shot." "Exactly." Rourke leaned across the table, his voice low but charged with purpose. "The Council thinks fear is a weapon. They don't realize it's our fuel. We fight best when we got nothing to lose." The Admiral studied him for a long moment before giving a slow nod. "You better be right about this, Elias." "I'm not betting on being right," Rourke said. "I'm betting on being too dangerous to fight." Hours later, Rourke stood alone in the Aegis observation deck, watching the red giant burn through the viewport. Its dying light bled across the hull of the ship, turning steel into molten gold. He thought of Earth, the pale blue hanging alone in the dark, fragile, vulnerable, but still standing. The door slid open behind him. Lien's reflection appeared beside his in the glass. "You really believe we can win this?" she asked quietly. Rourke didn't look away from the star. "Win? No, not the way they think of winning. But we can survive, and we can make them regret underestimating us." Lien studied his profile, the hard lines etched by years of conflict. "You're asking a lot from our people." "I know." His voice softened just for a moment. "But I'd rather ask for everything than watch us get erased without a fight." She was silent for a moment, then nodded once. "Then let's make them bleed." Rourke's mouth curved into a shadow of a smile. "That's the spirit." In the command center, orders flew across comms networks like sparks from a forge. Crews scrambled to retrofit ships, load weaponry, and prep experimental tech. Humanity's fleet, though small, pulsed with an energy that was equal parts desperation and defiance. Rourke returned to the center, his presence commanding instant attention. "Listen up," he said, voice cutting through the noise. "The Council wants to test us. Fine. Let's give them an answer they'll never forget." The Council chamber on Aurelia Prime was different this time. The air hummed with tension, as if every wall carried whispers of coming war. Commander Elias Rourke entered without ceremony, his boots echoing against the polished obsidian floor. He didn't bow or hesitate. Every step broadcast one message: we will not kneel. The chamber was half-lit, the tiers packed with alien representatives, their eyes like shards of glass or pools of fire. Veilthar stood on the raised dais, his black armor reflecting the pale light like liquid night. The High Chancellor's voice was calm, but there was venom beneath the surface. "You return human," Veilthar said. "I expected you would crawl back, begging for mercy. You disappoint me." Rourke's grin was quick and sharp. "Mercy? That's a word you don't even understand. I'm here to tell you something you need to hear." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. The speaker's luminous form flickered in irritation. "Envoy Rourke, you test this council's patience." "I'm not here to test patience," Rourke replied. His voice cut through the chamber, each word deliberate. "I'm here to tell you we're not afraid of you. You want to call humanity reckless? Fine. You want to call us unpredictable? Even better. But you need to understand something. We're not the ones shaking at the thought of war." Veilthar's claws raked against the dais, the metal screeching under his strength. Your species is a blight. You multiply without control, you consume, and now you dare challenge the order we built for millennia. Do you think you can stand against the Dominion? Not just your Dominion. Rourke shot back. All of you. He gestured to the council tiers. 400 species, all proud, all certain you know what power is, and yet none of you have ever met anything quite like us. A voice hissed from the shadows. A serpentine diplomat from the Arvaxian Alliance. You boast like a predator cornered by its hunters. Rourke turned his gaze on the speaker, unflinching. You're wrong. Humanity doesn't corner easily. We climb over walls. We build ladders from our failures. You want to understand us? We're the species that looked at a sky full of storms and decided to fly anyway. We buried enough of our dead to know how to survive. The chamber fell quiet. The silence was tense, almost electric. Meanwhile, aboard the Aegis, in the shadows of Aurelia's lower levels, human operatives were already moving. The Aegis intelligence wing had infiltrated the station's maintenance sectors, feeding Rourke real-time updates through his ear implant. Commander! A voice whispered through comm, the tone crisp and controlled. We've intercepted a priority message. Veilthar is mobilizing 3 Dominion fleets to Deneb. The first strikes are scheduled within days. Rourke's eyes narrowed. He didn't react outwardly, but his tone hardened. Good work. Keep digging. I want everything. Fleet numbers, routes, targets. Back in the chamber, Veilthar took a deliberate step closer to Rourke. You speak of survival, as though you've already won. Let me make this simple. If humanity does not disarm, we will obliterate your worlds. The first attack will be swift and final. Try, Rourke said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried like thunder. The High Chancellor froze. The simplicity of the challenge, no bluster, no plea, drew the attention of every representative. You think we're weak because our ships are smaller, Rourke continued, because our colonies are young. But you have no idea what we've built in the shadows. You think we'll play your game, fight your wars the way you want. We won't. We'll fight on our terms, and you'll never see us coming. In the Council's private observation gallery, 2 diplomats watched the confrontation unfold. One, a crystalline being named Zethara, turned to her companion. He is reckless, but his conviction is dangerous. What if he speaks the truth? Then the Council may have started a war it cannot predict, the other replied. The chamber erupted in voices, some demanding sanctions, others calling for war. The speaker tried to regain control. Enough! This assembly will decide the fate of humanity. Rourke, you will. Decide our fate? Rourke interrupted, his voice cutting through the noise. No, we decide our own fate. And if you come for us, you'll learn just how far we'll go protect it. He turned sharply, his coat brushing the polished floor as he walked away. Every step toward the exit felt like a declaration. Later, aboard the Aegis, Rourke entered the war room, the holographic display alive with movement. Council fleet routes, coded transmissions, and Terran countermeasures in progress. Admiral Lien was already there, her expression tight. You stirred up a storm, she said, arms crossed. Good, Rourke replied. They needed to hear it, and we need to be ready when they decide to make good on their threats. The intelligence feed flashed, highlighting Deneb's coordinates. Vega stood nearby, leaning over the table. Our spies weren't kidding. Veilthar's moving his best fleets. Deneb is just the start. If they take it, Earth is next. Rourke studied the hologram. Then we don't let them take it. We fight where they least expect it. Deneb's heavily fortified. Lien warned. We'd be throwing ships into a meat grinder. Not if we make the grinder work for us, Rourke said, his mind already racing through tactics. We'll set traps, hit their supply lines, and vanish before they can strike back. We turned Deneb into their first lesson. Humanity doesn't die quietly. Hours later, Rourke stood alone in the observation deck, the endless sprawl of stars ahead of him. A quiet ping came through his implant. Another message from the agents on Aurelia Prime. Commander, the voice whispered. There's talk of a formal vote. Some species are breaking from Veilthar's line. Your defiance is spreading fear and doubt. Rourke allowed himself a faint smile. Good. Fear is a start. He turned from the stars, heading back toward the war room. Sent a message to all colonies. Tighten defenses. We hold the line. And tell Vega, those railguns had better be ready to fire in 3 days. By the time Rourke returned to command center, the fleet was buzzing with preparation. Engineers worked around the clock. Pilots drilled until their muscles burned, and commanders mapped every possible scenario. Admiral, Rourke said, his voice sharp but steady, we're done waiting for permission. We're preparing for war. Lien met his gaze. And the council? They're already at war with us, Rourke said. They just haven't realized what kind of enemy they've picked. The first shots of the war weren't fired in open space. They were fired from the shadows, in the void beyond Deneb. The Cthel Dominion's lead fleet glided to the dark like a pack of predators. Their ships were towering blades of black alloy, bristling with weaponry and shimmering under the glare of the nearest star. Fleet Commander Dravik, a ruthless tactician, stared at the tactical map with cold precision. The Terrans will not resist long, he muttered, mandibles clicking. They lack the strength to meet us head-on. But Dravik had underestimated humanity's taste for the unorthodox. Aboard the Aegis, Rourke leaned over the central holo display. Dozens of crimson markers blinked. Dominion ships entering human space. Status, he demanded. 5 Dominion cruisers breached the Deneb perimeter, reported Tactical Officer Hayes. Main fleet inbound in hours. Rourke's gaze hardened. And our traps... Vega's voice came from behind him, low and edged with pride. Set and waiting. Asteroid belt Sector 9. Once they enter the kill zone, they won't know what hit them. Rourke nodded. Good. They think we'll fight their war. Let's show them ours. The ambush began silently. Cthel ships approached the asteroid belt without concern, their scanners tuned for active energy signatures. The field looked unremarkable, chunks of rock spinning in endless orbits. But hidden among the debris, cloaked Terran railgun platforms and automated drones waited, powered down to near invisibility. Dominion fleet entering Sector 9. Hayes said, voice taut. Rourke stood perfectly still. Wait for my mark. The Dominion ships pushed deeper into the field. Unaware of the danger, one of the asteroids shifted slightly. A signal. Fire, Rourke ordered. The void erupted. Railgun rounds, glowing with plasma heat, tore through space at impossible speeds. The first Dominion cruiser shattered in a burst of molten metal before its shields even registered the attack. Direct hit. Vega barked. One down. The Dominion fleet scrambled, weapons charging, but the asteroids themselves seemed to come alive. Drones emerged from behind the rocks, weaving through the field like hornets, releasing volleys of micro-missiles. On the Dominion flagship, alarm screamed. Dravik slammed a clawed hand onto the console. Identify the attackers. Unknown weapons. Commander, their platforms are hidden among the debris. Dravik's eyes flared with rage. Destroy the field. Burn it all. The battle raged in chaotic bursts. Terran drones didn't aim to destroy everything. They aimed to disrupt. A single railgun shot would cripple an enemy engine, leaving ships spinning helplessly. Others struck shield generators, forcing the Dominion to scatter. They're losing formation, Hayes reported. Keep them guessing, Rourke said, eyes fixed on the display. Don't let them regroup. The Aegis stayed just outside sensor range, commanding the chaos like a phantom conductor. Rourke's tactics weren't about brute force. They were about control, about making the Dominion bleed one ship at a time. After 30 minutes of relentless strikes, the Dominion fleet was in disarray. 3 cruisers were dead in space, their hulls ripped open. Another burned from the inside, venting fire and atmosphere. They're retreating, Hayes said, disbelief lacing her tone. Rourke didn't smile. No, they're regrouping. This was just the first wave. They'll adapt. Vega slapped the console. But we gave him a hell of a welcome. Don't celebrate yet, Rourke warned. This was just the opening move. They'll hit back harder. Hours later, as Terran forces regrouped at Deneb Station, the reality of their losses settled in. Though the ambush had worked, 2 drone platforms had been destroyed and 1 Terran frigate, Vanguard 7, had been caught in the crossfire when its cloaking failed. The crew barely escaped with their lives. Rourke walked to the medical bay, the metallic tang of antiseptic heavy in the air. Soldiers sat on cots, some with burns, others pale from oxygen deprivation. He stopped beside a young officer, barely more than 20, her face streaked with soot. "You fought well," Rourke said quietly. She looked up, eyes wide. "We got lucky, sir." "No," Rourke corrected. "We were ready. Luck just follows preparation." Later, in the war room, Admiral Lien studied the data with a frown. "We can't keep this up forever. Ambushes work now, but once they learn our patterns—" "We won't give them the chance," Rourke interrupted. "We move faster than they can adapt. Hit and vanish. Make every strike feel like we're 10 steps ahead." "They'll bring more ships," Lien argued. "The Cthel Dominion won't tolerate this kind of humiliation." "Good," Rourke said. "The more they commit, the more they leave their own borders exposed. And that's when we strike where they don't expect." Vega grinned. "You're talking about taking the fight to them." Rourke met his gaze. "Exactly." Far across the stars, Veilthar listened to Dravik's report with simmering rage. The High Chancellor's claws dug into the arms of his throne. "You were ambushed by a primitive species hiding in rocks." Veilthar's voice was ice. Dravik bowed his head, shame radiating from his rigid form. "Their tactics were unorthodox. We will adjust." "You will do more than adjust," Veilthar growled. "You will crush them. I will not have the Dominion mocked by a species of upstarts." Back on the Aegis, Rourke received a fresh intel report. "Dominion reinforcements en route." Hayes said, "We bought time, but not much." Rourke studied the star map, the red markers inching closer. "Then we make this war costlier for them with every breath." Vega, prepare the second line of defenses around Deneb. Admiral Lien, alert every Terran colony. This fight's going to get worse before it gets better. Later that night, Rourke stood alone on the observation deck. The stars were quiet, but his mind wasn't. He could feel the weight of every decision pressing down. Deneb was just one battle, but it was proof of something greater, humanity's refusal to break. His comm pinged. Lien's voice came through. "Elias, you should rest." "Can't," he said, eyes still on the stars. "Not until they understand we're not prey." There was silence for a beat, then her quiet reply. "Then let's make sure they never forget." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. The great hall, a ring of obsidian and crystal suspended above the dying light of a red giant, felt like a tomb. The seats were filled, hundreds of species in their finest regalia. Yet every gaze was locked on the lone human standing at the center. Commander Elias Rourke's uniform bore fresh scars from battle. Charred edges, streaks of dust and plasma residue. He hadn't come to bow or apologize. He came to make the council listen. The High Chancellor Veilthar stood tall on the dais, his black armor glinting under the pale lights. His four eyes narrowed with disdain as his claws scraped the surface of his throne. "You defy the Dominion, and yet you return here as though this chamber belongs to you." Rourke tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "No," he said. "It belongs to anyone willing to stand and speak the truth. That's why I'm here." The speaker, glowing like a column of fire, rippled with tension. "Commander Rourke, you were summoned under threat of sanction. This council demands you cease your attacks on Dominion fleets and submit to oversight." Rourke raised a hand, cutting the speaker short. "Oversight? You mean surrender. I'm not here to debate terms of submission. I'm here to tell you that the war you started is over, whether you like it or not." The chamber erupted with a mix of hisses, growls, and mechanical whirs. Veilthar's voice silenced them all. "Over? You have destroyed a few ships. Nothing more. Your fleets are scattered. Your colonies vulnerable. You will be wiped away like dust when we strike again." Rourke took a step forward, his boots echoing on the polished floor. "Strike again?" His voice rose, not with anger, but with cutting precision. "Let me show you what happened the last time you tried." He gestured to the hollow emitter at the center of the chamber. The lights dimmed, and a projection burst into life above the floor, a real-time feed of Dominion fleets limping back from Deneb. Dozens of Cthel ships, once pristine black blades of war, now burned with scorched hulls and shattered wings. Some trailed smoke even as they fled through the void. "This," Rourke said, his voice echoing, "is what your war looks like. You came at us with overwhelming force, and you bled for it. You call us primitive? Yet you've lost cruisers worth more than our entire colony worlds." A ripple of shock ran through the tiers. Even Veilthar's claws paused mid-motion. "You think this is victory?" Veilthar's voice was low but dangerous. "You have not yet seen the full strength of the Dominion." Rourke's reply was immediate. "And you haven't seen the full strength of humanity. We didn't build this strength by being bigger or faster than our enemies. We built it by being relentless. You threaten to burn our worlds? We'll rebuild on the ashes. You kill our soldiers? We'll fight you with engineers, farmers, anyone who can hold a weapon. You cannot defeat a species that refuses to quit." Aboard the Aegis, Admiral Lien and the Terran delegation watched the live transmission of the council session. The war room was tense. Every officer frozen as Rourke's voice carried across the feed. "God, he's baiting them," Vega muttered, leaning over the console. "No," Lien said softly, eyes locked on the screen. "He's making them see." Back in the chamber, the speaker tried to restore control. "Commander Rourke, you must understand. If the Council perceives you as a threat, humanity will be isolated, sanctioned, possibly exterminated." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "You can try, but every ship you send at us will cost you fleets you can't replace. You want to fight? Fine. But let's stop pretending this is about balance or peace. This is about fear. You fear what we are, because we don't fit into your neat hierarchy of old empires and tired rules." He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the tiers. "You've all grown comfortable. You've forgotten what it's like to claw your way up from nothing. Humanity hasn't. We remember. We are the fire that burns when everything else has gone cold." Veilthar stepped down from the dais, his towering form casting a long shadow across the chamber floor. "You dare speak to us as equals?" His voice rumbled, each word heavy with threat. Rourke met his glare without flinching. "No, I speak to you as someone who's tired being told to kneel." Veilthar's claws twitched. "You think this defiance makes you strong?" "It makes us unbreakable," Rourke said. The tension in the room was a taut wire. A representative from the crystalline Zethary finally spoke, their voice resonating like struck glass. "Perhaps the human is right. The Dominion's aggression only fuels their resistance. I've seen the footage. These Terrans fight like no other." A second voice followed, this time from the aquatic Saruan. "They adapt faster than we expected. Even our own fleets have suffered against their ingenuity." Veilthar's eyes darted to speakers. "You would take their side? You would side with these animals." Rourke seized a moment. "We don't need allies," he said, his voice low and cutting. "We just need you to stay out of our way." On the hollow display, another feed appeared, courtesy of the Aegis. It showed Dominion cruisers being swarmed by human-strike drones near Deneb, their engines exploding one by one in fiery bursts. Rourke tilted his head toward Veilthar. "Is that all?" he asked, repeating the words that had started this war. The silence that followed was heavier than steel. The speaker's form flickered uneasily. "Commander Rourke, what are you proposing?" "A truce," Rourke said simply. "No oversight. No chains. You leave humanity alone, and we don't turn your precious fleets into target practice. I don't want your wars. But I promise you this. If you come for us again, you won't like what happens next." Veilthar's claws tightened, scraping the floor, but he said nothing. The council murmured among themselves, some voices rising in agreement, others in anger. After a long silence, the speaker finally spoke. "The council will deliberate." Rourke nodded once. "Do that. But understand this. Whether you approve or not, humanity will survive. We always do." He turned, walking toward the chamber doors. Before stepping through, he glanced back, his gaze locking with Veilthar's. "We don't start wars," Rourke said, his voice steady, "but we finish them." The doors hissed shut behind him. Aboard the Aegis, Admiral Lien exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. He just dared the council to back down. Vega grinned. And they're thinking about it. Rourke's voice crackled through the comms. Prep the fleet. This isn't over yet. But I think they finally understand who they're dealing with. The red giant outside the station burned on, its light falling over Aurelia Prime like a promise of both death and rebirth. Humanity had spoken its defiance, and the galaxy had heard.